Hello and welcome to episode 16 of WebFlail, covering the greatest failures behind the greatest webflowers, because success often comes after learning from many failures. I'm your host, Jack, a failure connoisseur, and today my guest is Marcelo Russo, also known as Marce. So anyone that's pronouncing that wrong, let's get it right. Marcelo is the CEO and creative technologist of Friends Agency. He's an Argentinian computer grad that cut his teeth working for different tech companies before starting his own agency. We'll dig into this during the episode. And a fun fact for you, Marcelo is a salsa dancer and met his wife dancing salsa. It's an honor to have you here, Marcelo.
Thank you, Jack. Beautiful intro. Thank you for the name. Definitely, it's going to be life-changing when I begin to hear every American English-speaking person call me the super crazy translation for Marce. It's going to be fun.
I'm glad. I feel like it's important to get your name right straight out the gate, because I'm going to be asking you some difficult questions. So, it's at least respectful to know how to pronounce your name. Hello to Dale. Hello to anyone else that's in the chat on LinkedIn and YouTube. We're live streaming there. So thank you so much for your support. And if you guys have any questions for Marce during the episode, feel free to put them in the chat. So let's dig into this thing. Before we get into the failures, what I want to do is to ask you what creative technologist of Friends Agency means and what that looks like day to day.
It's really interesting. It's one of those particular titles that I've seen in companies that I admire. And a friend of mine actually helped me coin it because it marries the creative problem solving with having some acceptable level of design skill set while being very good at technology. As you said before, right? My background is a CS grad, so when I started everything, I had no idea. I can still not draw, the little stick man to save my life. So I had to kind of like grab all the design chops along the way, and I'm more of an executive in the side of design, able to help my creative team get the results that our clients want. So that's where creative technologies come into marry in a beautiful, perfect ball of a human, in my case, that helps companies when they come and say, I want a website that looks good, that performs good, that it has a complex infrastructure, sometimes enterprise level. Like, I'm the guy that they can talk to and make sure that everything will fall into pieces, all the dominoes will fall in place, all the puzzle pieces will connect.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And I've heard you say on a previous interview with Josh Lowe from Railium Agency, shout out Josh, that you might not always make the best design decisions, but you have very good grasp of the fundamentals of how a project kind of overall should go. And you're also really good at trusting your team to do their job. It sounds like you've got amazing designers, amazing developers, and you're good to, because I think that's one trick with agency owners that's quite hard to kind of give over creative control sometimes. Would you agree with that?
I would say absolutely, because that has been sometimes really hard for me to accept the fact that I'm not going to be the best. But on the other hand, it's really easy for me to accept that I'm not going to be the best. There's the joke, when you don't know how to do something, you teach it, right? So in my case, I had a very similar experience with managing the team. I'm not the best engineer in town. I'm not going to be the best DevOps or coder or designer or sketcher or whatever we want to call it. But I am really good at making sure that everybody has the information that they need in a way that they need it. And I know just how to speak those two different languages. So definitely I have no ego with what I do. You're better than me? For sure you're better than me. Go right ahead and do your thing.
This is the chillaxed overachiever mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Really. And speaking of, so just to understand kind of how friends agency sits into your life and the life of your business partners. So you've got, I'm definitely going to pronounce this one wrong, Marcelo, Kroom or
That was actually rather good. It's Q Room but we
Room.
never bothered to put the dash to make it separately.
Okay, fine. So Q Room, and that is the kind of overarching agency, and then Friends Agency is like the spin-off agency that came about a couple of years ago. Am I right? Is that
1,000% right?
okay? And can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah, Q Room actually started about 11 years ago. My co-founder of that company, Alejandro, like it's I think he has like 20 years more than me. So he's an experienced entrepreneur. He has built companies in the past, and he was always pestering me. He's like, "Hey, we got to do something together." So I literally always said no, 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 no. And one day he just decided to up and go and do it, even when I said no. And he listed me as a general manager. So when we came about and I came to the US and I wanted to start a side gig, I started talking to people that I trust. And of course, that was Ale. And he said, it's like, oh, but you already have a company. You've been doing some work for it. Like those paychecks that I sent you, they were not, really, I love you paychecks, is you work for it paycheck. Um, so at that time, I said, sure, let's keep on building Q Room. But Ali's objective is always to create more companies, to have more ventures, and all live under Q Room. And as Q Room in itself and our Webflow services begin to take more notice in the space, we begin to have a disconnect between what we do and what the company does and what the company says and the identity. And that's where I decided to rebrand. It was the only logical logical movement there. So we took that step, and I think it was in June that we made it official. And basically, everybody that has been working with me and in Q Room for the past 3 years moved into this separate venture, while I keep also running Q Room on the other ventures.
Yeah. Okay. And so you have Friends Agency is kind of like your baby, and that you're kind of overseeing that, and
Yeah.
you also do Flutter dev work as well as Webflow.
Yeah.
So do you find that from a kind of marketing perspective on Twitter, there seems to be a lot of people with kind of strong personal brands, and they're known for being the Webflow guy or the animations guy with Joseph Berry, or whatever. Do you find that it's kind of hard to marry the marketing of like Flutter and Webflow on Twitter? I see that you post on LinkedIn. Like, do you find it kind of hard to manage like the kind of expectations of what you are and how that brings business into the agency?
1,000%. I don't really find it hard. I'm clearly very bad at it. Like I don't have I don't know if I want to be recognized as the guy of something other than just a friendly dude in the internet. Um, or everybody that comes looking for Flutter, it's probably someone that already worked with QRoom or knows QRoom,
Okay.
because that was we specialized in building and developing applications, while every major effort is being put towards bringing Webflow clients and growing the Webflow practice that we have. And I'm barely beginning to get a grasp on how to do social media. One of the reasons I always was COO or had operation type of titles was because I don't necessarily like being in the spotlight. I'm more of the guy that comes very quietly to save the day, and that's it. And when I started becoming and saying, okay, I'm going to accept the role that I am a CEO of a company, I thought, okay, sure. I think I'll need to at least give it an honest try to become this person that is a little bit more public, that talks to everybody and tries to engage with the community. And honestly, this community is by far the best thing that has happened to me in 2 years. Definitely meeting everyone and hearing the warmth and the encouragement and how everybody works together. It's breaking a lot of preconceived notions in me and allowing me to help everybody as much as I can.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about the importance of community in regards to the future as well, where it sounds like that was amazing community for you to meet so many interesting people, friends, clients. Do you think that that's something that people don't necessarily do enough when they're doing Webflow? Like, I think there's a kind of fear of being accepted into a community on the internet, but I think Webflow seems to do a really good job of encouraging community. Do you agree with that?
1,000%. I mean, Webflow community is extremely welcoming, and it has been from day one. And I was exploring the idea the other day with Emily about what makes Webflow so awesome, and is that I think that is a lot of these companies that we've seen, from Edgar Allan to FinSuite to Friends and to the smaller agencies that are coming up. We are all kind of like in the same path at the same time. It's like
Mm,
none of these companies has 20 years or 10 years doing Webflow. Sometimes maybe, but it's like the majority of the companies that are currently well known in the space have been recent companies that
mm,
have grow with Webflow. They have grown their teams, and they're taking advantage of all of us working together. And it shows that Webflow continues to conquer the market. That the pie is only getting bigger. So it's not that, oh my gosh, now that this other company got Hewlett Packard, now I'm never gonna get anything. It's like, nope. Tomorrow there's gonna be another big company, another big name that is gonna come into the space, and if you're
mm.
ready and take the opportunity, you're probably gonna get it.
See, that's something interesting that I've heard you say before. That in terms of getting these kind of big fish clients, as it were, instead of trying actively to get the big fish clients, they'll come to you when you're good enough and you have honed your skill set. Do you think that there's this kind of fetishization of getting like 10K clients straight out the bat with people that are getting into the Webflow space? Do you think that they should just be learning the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript before getting in? Or what advice would you give to someone who's like, I really want to get Hewlett Packard, but actually you're like, whoa, 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 do you know any code type thing?
Yeah, definitely. You gotta measure yourself against the opportunity. The famous "don't bite more than you can chew" is really important, but
Mm.
at the same time, you will be able to eat more than you think. I don't know. That's a was a very weird expression.
I've
I'm
never
gonna try to
heard that.
rephrase it.
I've never heard that like next part of that metaphor, but interesting.
But, and I have a very very interesting example. When I started the agency, and I decided I was going to go head on in Webflow, of course I needed a portfolio. So there I was, like, working a million hours a day, like learning Webflow. I already knew HTML, so I come from a development background, so that was easy for me. But I had to learn the tool. I had zero design skill set, so I was learning design along the way. And then my first few clients, of course, were the typical, I can build your website for $50 or $100 or like $200. And one day, one friend of mine came to me with an opportunity, and the opportunity was to build a $18,000 website. And I was like, sure, I can do that. And I went to the pitch, and I pitched, I win a $18,000 website when I was selling it for 100. So there is always the bite more than you can chew, and the number, but the number is not the problem. The client is not the problem. It's always being introspective with yourself. Are you, if they ask me, I knew that I had the network, that if they ask me something crazy, I could pick up the phone and like, hey, I have the money. I just need you to come and help me. And that's it. It's like from there on, almost I can tackle almost any project. And that's true as it was 3 years ago. It's true right now.
That's really interesting advice. So don't necessarily think that you can't get a big project at your level, but recognize that you may need to pay for help, and that's totally fine. Oh, interesting. I feel like this is going to be an amazing episode. Let's get into the failures then. You sent me across
Oh,
these failures. We haven't had any of them yet on the show so far, so I'm very intrigued to get into them. Tell me about failure number one: failing to be a unique company by trying to mimic another company?
So that's an interesting one to analyze, because when Curum started, as I said, 11 years ago, and we've been basically doing uh, product development in whichever language, whichever technology, whichever way the client wanted. It's like, hey, you have an idea, come to me, we'll do it. That's it. That's where everything finished. So when I came to the US and I started to thinking about specializing and working in different ways, I realized that that was a very hard sell. It's like every time it seemed like, no matter in a call with a client, no matter what they said, it's like, we're gonna make it work, we're gonna make it happen. And it's like it began to sound desperate to me in my own calls. It's like and I was not desperate, but it was weird when the client says, I want to do this in Drupal, hosting it in my own house, and all custom code. And it's like, yeah, sure, I can do all of that.
Mm.
And then it's like, wait a minute, you can do all of that and deploy some ways or make it complex. It began to have that kind of like impact on myself, and that's where Webflow came into this place, into my life. I discovered it, I loved it, I rolled and decided to say, I'm gonna basically stop doing what we're doing up to this point. So cut off all the clients, cut off all my team that I had at that moment, and the people that stayed were the ones that really wanted to continue down this path, and started on Webflow. So I didn't want to do what I was doing before, like structure the company that way. So I started out looking into different inspirations, like company structures, company methods, ways of handling teams and contracts and pricing. At that time, I still haven't onboarded my current co-founder for Friends, which is my best friend from childhood. So I started looking at a company. I looked at Zappos. I loved Zappos. I loved the decentralized concept that they had. So for a few months, I tried to run the company as Zappos. So I looked at that. I studied that. I talked to a lot of people, and it was grinding teeth all the time. It's like always complicated, nothing matching exactly what I wanted it to be. People were struggling to accept the process that Zappos had and that I was trying to implement. Yeah, so I had to kind of like come to the realization that I couldn't imitate that structure. That structure was the result of years of polishing what they were doing and selecting the employees specifically for that. So then I made the mistake again. So I looked into another company, and that's around the time that I met Chris Doe and I met The Future, and I looked at Blind, and it's like, oh my God, this guy talks exactly like I talk. I thinks very similar like I do. I has a company that does amazing projects like the ones that I want to make. Let's try to go there. And again, it was a failure because Chris Doe had way many more years of experience than I did as being the CEO of that company, and I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. So I had to kind of like find a way to marry again that idea, and that was difficult. And the realization of how I should solve that problem came when I was recently implementing ClickUp. And I said it, I think, yesterday when I was talking to Emily. I love the way 80/20 is implementing ClickUp and how they do it, but they have a bigger company than I do. So what I have to do is like shrink what they're doing and what I like into something that works for me. There is no, sure, I want to go into something as complex as what they have, but that's going to take time, and that's okay. It's not going to be right now. It's not going to be this year. I don't even know if it's going to be next year, but everything is okay. I'm just going to do something that gives me a stepping stone in the right direction, and that's it.
Fascinating. So it sounds like you tried to look at who you admired and thought, well, if it's working for them and I want to be like them, I'm just going to implement that for me. But it's been a kind of journey of self-discovery to understand that you as a founder are not the same founders of either of these two companies, Zappos and Blind. And as a result, those same structures don't work. Have I understood that correctly?
100%. And it's not that they don't work, probably, because of course they do it work for them. And I know that down the line they're gonna work for me too,
Mm,
because it has to do with the people and it has to do with the experience.
mm,
In my case, I come from as a manager, as an engineer, I'm obsessed with process and outcomes and, like, input, black box, output, those kind of things. So when it comes to thinking about my company, like I kept on seeing all of that and stressing out, and I had to grow as a business owner, as a CEO, to understand that my team will know better, that my team knows, and be better at giving them direction and giving them instructions, knowing when to lead, when to coach, when to step back, uh, when to change my role from being a CEO to an executive to a creative to a developer. Finding that right balance is taking time, and it's gonna keep on taking time.
mm. And it sounds like understanding that you need to wear those different hats, and what those even hats are meant to be, is the key to working out what the structure is, rather than I'm going to implement the structure first and then work out what hats I'm going to wear. It sounds like you've come to the realization that you need to understand how you can best support different people in different scenarios, and that is going to dictate the structure. Is
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the scenarios will work, but it's kind of like trying to tell you how to create a company from scratch. Like,
Mm,
there are so many infinite variables, in my opinion, that sure there can be steps, but it needs to be you. The company needs to feel like you, reflect like you, work like you, and the whole point of hiring people that are better than you is because you had enough introspection to know what are your shortcomings and how someone else is going to be happy filling that role of your shortcoming.
and do you feel like Friends Agency is now as much Marseille as it can possibly be, or do
Um,
you feel like there's still a little bit of kind of ironing out and working out to do?
well, it's as much Marce as it is my co-founder Esteban, but
Mm,
at the same time, we are both constantly changing who we are, and we are not ever stationary. In like,
yeah.
this is our personality, and this is how the company is going to be. We literally, I at least on myself, I try to be a completely different human every month as much as I can. It's like there's
Wow.
always something to improve. There's
Mm,
something to learn. There's always something to try. So whether it is a new way of managing my accounts, or a new way of managing my PMs, or a new way of helping my lead be a better lead, or taking the pedal off the metal and saying, allowing the company to go slower, or sometimes it's let's go faster and find what's going to happen. Right now, the best thing I can keep on doing is making sure that while I discover all of this, everybody else is happy.
So, say hypothetically, there's someone watching who's running an agency or wants to start an agency. Do you have any kind of consolidating advice for them in regards to the journey that they're about to go on, or how they can make the journey slightly less difficult?
Well, I think that your hand motion gave me the idea of what I'm gonna say. It's like having a company; it's fluid. There is no blueprint. We There's nobody that knows better than you. We just have more years of experience, hence we've seen more, but our experiences may not be the right for you. So just make sure that you're comfortable waking up every day and bringing your full self to the company, because the moment that you need to bring some different self of you, some different version, that's going to take energy, and running a company needs all your energy. And the moment that anything feels like it's draining you, you should stop that thing. Don't let it faster, don't let it grow, don't think that that's going to change in the past. Your company, it's you, reflection of your self, your current self. Improve yourself, improve your company, and allow your company to be you. Allow it to fail, allow it to grow, allow it to learn, allow it to laugh. In our case, we have so much fun every day that even when we are against a tight deadline, sometimes unfortunately working over hours. I always try to have myself and everybody in a good mood working it and just having fun.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot of different advice there. So there's going to be ups and downs. So don't expect there to be one magic bullet running an
Yeah.
agency. It sounds like the more you are learning and growing as an individual, the more that's going to inspire the agency and the workers in the agency and maybe the clients themselves to learn and grow. And that's going to benefit everyone. And if everyone's in a good mood, then it's not going to feel nearly as much like work. So there are 3 big pieces of advice for anyone that's watching and is trying to either start their own agency or maybe is struggling to currently run their own agency. Tell me about failure number 2, failing to trust your gut with clients and hires.
Well, that's actually the easiest one of them all, because one of the things that we always got trained from other people that we hear listen is like, focus on your business. It's like your business is an entity separate from you and so on. And with sometimes the need of bringing the money into your company and hitting a milestone or any of those things, you stop hearing yourself. And this, I know that we all always talk about the red flags and so on, but this is not even up to that point. There's, in my opinion, there's a more primal level of the red flags. And I'm going to talk about the failures in itself, right? It's like we were last year, we were working with we were trying to get a client, that it was in a space that I really, really liked. And it's like, oh my God, I want to have this project. So my business brain is like, okay, this is an interesting project in a space that I want to go in. And I talked to these people and they were like, yeah, we're going to give you creative freedom, like do this. The budget was right for what they wanted to do, for I wanted to do. So everything was kind of like falling into pieces. But every time I went into the meeting, I came out with a weird feeling. Not good, not bad, pure weird, just that. But I kept thinking, it's like, yeah, it's just me. I'm being, extremely picky, or I was having a bad day, or I don't know, many excuses. And come start the project, we're doing the design. We have a beautiful, like audacious design, kind of like what they wanted for us to do. And they begin to tear it down, and not necessarily in a constructive way. They started just like, I don't like this, they don't want this, I never told you this, I never told you that. So it became a huge conversation of you said, she said, even against our creative brief that we try to put it always there to avoid this kind of like you said, he, she said. So when that came to pass, I began to realize that was our hard feeling. That was the weirdness. I was feeling that this yes situation that we were having during the sales process was about they liked us, but they needed proficient hands, but they were not really the ideal client that we wanted to work on. And I had to do the hard thing of firing the client. We were almost at the end of the project. This client had 3 change requests logged with us, so that was going to triple the price of the project. And we decided to not do it. We decided to cancel everything and say, we're not going to continue working with you. Here are a couple other agencies, and that's it. Off you go. So definitely that's a moment where I was like, I should have trusted my gut. I would have saved stress from my team, stress for myself, stress for my designers. Everything would have been significantly better if I wouldn't have said yes at that beginning.
So this primal feeling that you're talking about, like for anyone that's just getting into client work that's watching or listening, like what does that feel? Just talk us through. Is it in the throat? Is it in the stomach? Are you just like, no, like you everything that they're saying, you're like, something's weird here. Like what does that actually feel like?
So I distill it into something that I'm using right now, but the feeling is kind of like in the back of my head, kind of like a little dude jumping up and down and saying like, pay attention to me, like, no. Like, and I realized that it ends up becoming the reason why my company is called Friends. It's like, I didn't want to have a beer with this guy. I wanted to have a business relationship. I wanted to like give it the money, I'll execute the project around the parameters I like, and then we shake hands and we move on. And I realized that that's not what I want. I want to make friends. I want to meet people that I enjoy picking up a call at 8 in the morning or at 8 at night and help them out, even if I need to talk to them about something completely non-related to projects. It's like I want to have that feeling because that's also what I want in my team. I want them to understand that they can do whatever they want during the day. We have objectives, and that's it. That's as far as we go. Like if you need to go take your dog, have a longer walk, you're having a bad day and you're not concentrated, just tell me, hey Marcelo, today's a little shitty day. Instead of doing what I was supposed to do today, I'm going to take this one task and then take the day to brainstorm and think about other things or relax. I'll come back and do more, and I'll adjust the deadlines and have that type of caring for everybody else around you. And this client didn't care about us, didn't care about my team, didn't care about the work, and I should have listened to the guy jumping here.
So it sounds like implementing some kind of beer test. Like,
Yes.
would I want to have a beer with this client is something that can be, sounds kind of juvenile to be like, would I have a beer with this person? Like, we're trying to make a website project, but would I have a beer with them? But actually, it is quite a good kind of monitor as to whether this project is going to be enjoyable or not. I found as well. I'm not a big drinker, but I'd still.
Yeah, we can easily replace beer with a good
Fanta,
lasagna or
yeah. Oh,
you know.
lasagna. Yeah, I love lasagna. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Would you have a lasagna with this? I mean, that sounds even weirder than beer. But either way, I mean, basically judging how the client is going to treat you and your team on a project is a far, far better metric to judge whether to take the project or not than the budget or something like that, which probably, most people would be like, hey, if they offer me £1 million and treat me like shit, I'm going to take the job. But actually, I mean, I don't know what shit tastes like, but I probably wouldn't eat it for £1 million.
Yeah, but maybe for two, and I would just like put it into like a completely separate team that knows that they're gonna be eating shit. I don't know.
Okay.
No, probably I wouldn't either.
Well, let's talk about.
I like all of my teams,
podcast,
so I wouldn't do that to anybody.
If any of your team are watching, they're just like, would I be in that team? But no, I'm glad that you've worked this out, because I feel like, for a freelancer that's starting out, it's important to realize what projects you want to take and what projects you don't. But it's probably even more important for an agency owner, because you're accepting projects not only on behalf of you, but your agency, your whole team will be working with this client. So it sounds like a really, really important thing to have worked out.
Yeah, and it applies the same way to a team member. I mean, we had an unfortunate situation with another team member in a project, and when the chips were down and we needed that person to come through, we were met with excuses, and we left. Like they literally left the project, stopped answering text, emails, messages, or anything, and the project was not done. And I had the same gut feeling. It's like something is not right. Something is not right. Talk to this guy. Something is not right. But he kept not answering properly, not communicating internally properly, but hitting the milestones. I would say up to a good 80% or 85%. So I kept telling myself, it's like, well, we can solve this on QA, we can solve this in QA, we can solve this in QA. And then when the chips were down and we went into QA, he disappeared. And nothing got done, and it took us a month actually to get in contact with him. By that time, we already onboarded a new developer that made the project become non-profitable for us, and a new guy that had to basically walk into a fiery hell because the client was pissed, we were exhausted. He had to learn the code that someone else wrote from scratch. So definitely
Tough.
this sword cuts both ways. It's like it's for client and people. Your employees, your team members are going to be with you 12 hours a day, at least for me, because I'm in multiple time zones. So I will be seeing them all my day. And if there's not that level of comfort of talking and arguing and finding solutions and disagreeing on solutions and admitting someone is wrong, admitting someone is right, um, all of those things, they need to happen.
Mm. Do you think that there's like people don't really talk about the soft skills as much as the hard skills in the Webflow community? Because I can't help feeling the more I talk to people on this podcast, the more they are making hiring decisions not so much based on the hard skill abilities. Of course, you'd like to think that those are given if they're applying for that job with their CV and stuff, but actually the communication, admitting they're wrong when they're wrong, replying punctually, turning up to meetings, like things like that. Do you feel that these soft skills need to have a bigger weight in terms of when you're thinking about hiring people?
At least definitely for us, it's paramount. That's not even that's the question that we are first asked. And I literally had call interviews short as like, sorry dude, I don't think we're a fit. When some part of those first few checks don't don't measure up. And by the way, for everybody listening, please, if you're doing an interview, show up on time. Show up like 5 minutes before, because that was already like you have. I've interviewed hundreds of people through my career, and definitely someone that doesn't show on time, or at least text me, "Hey, dude, I'm running a few minutes late. Do you mind waiting, or should we reschedule?" That's already a no in my like. Thank you very much. Like,
Mm,
you need to be accountable that there's another person. Um, but talking about the soft skills, they're hard to quantify or they're hard to gauge. So that's, I think, is one of the reasons why we put them in the back burner.
mm,
How do you know that someone is a good communicator without them working with you? How do you know that someone will respect a deadline without giving them a deadline? So part of our process has a little bit of that, but it's still the first one is the beer test. Like there
mm,
are certain elements of this conversation that I always have myself with my business partner, with our lead engineer, and each one of us look for different things. It's like I look for the beer test. I know my business partner Esteban looks for the ability to communicate and articulate complex ideas properly. He's more of the account manager. While I really appreciate our lead engineer Richard, he has a particular set of questions where he actually looks for knowing where are they in their lives. Are you living with your parents? Are you trying to live alone? Have you gone to college? Not about the degree, it's about the experience that they had. And sometimes is, have you had hardships in your life? Because that's what's going to give you some very good telltales about, is this person aware that they are going to take a project that may be tied to their income, and what happens if they don't complete the project? What happens in your university if you don't submit the paper and you lose your scholarship? So it's like those kind of elements are things that I know Richard looks for, and they're amazing. And I wouldn't know how to do it properly. That's why I trust him. And
that's interesting.
for soft skills, I always try to trust someone else.
So Richard is the guy who finds the grit in the oyster, as it were.
Yeah,
Have
Rich is, if I'm on with the team on a day-to-day basis, Richard is on an hour to hour. He's the Webflow expert of our company. He's the one that he's gonna join us in San Francisco. So for everybody, come make sure that go and say hi to Richard. He's an awesome dude. He's super chill and bright as hell.
epic. All right, then. That's definitely person to look out for at the Webflow Conf. Tell me about failure number 3, then. Failing to prevent your past from defining your present worth.
That was very interesting. I mean, and it was one that I was trying to think about over these last few days, because as I said before, I didn't want to be CEO. I wanted to be the guy like behind the scenes and doing, the magic to make things happen.
Mm.
But I grew up from like not knowing anything at all. I was a trainee for an international company where I learned the very basics of programming, and then I grew up to go to team lead, to a software architect, to project manager, to product manager, and so on and so forth until I got me here. Or, well, basically the position I held before here. And as director of operations, that was my role. The guy that I worked for had a very particular style of leading that I resonated with. I really liked that style. But at the same time, it became apparent that once I left him, and I started to look into doing Webflow full time and all of that, I was still marked by all of these failure moments that I had in my past with him, and how critical he made them seem. Because I understand his side as CEO, but they were not as terrible. They were just things that, as a CEO, you wouldn't expect from your director of operations. So all of those marks were like, I'm not as good as I need to be. I'm not as good as a COO. I won't be good as CEO.
Mm.
And that was really hurting me because I still admire a lot of the things um, that this other person was able to do and accomplish. I'm extremely proud of the things that we accomplished together when our relationship was at its peak. But now looking out, there are a lot of things that I'm 1,000% sure that I don't want in my company, no matter what.
Mm.
Like, I want that appreciation. I want people to understand that they can literally leave the company and do great things alone. They don't need to be with me. And if tomorrow anyone in my company says I'm gonna go do on my own, kudos, perfect. I'm glad that you're ready. Like, let me give you some tips on how to start. I don't mind. I would be proud of that. And recently, I had the luck that an employee that is no longer with us, that I had to actually terminate, came back and brought us a deal, and a big one. And that speaks a lot to me about, in my case, and this makes me proud of the how I could create a culture where what we do together with my team goes beyond just work. Like, we may not be working together. It was not the right time for you to be in my company. I may have failed as leader to him to get the best out of him. And I know right now where he is super successful. So I want to, it was just, we were not able to work together for whatever reason. But that doesn't mean that we didn't establish a good relationship, that I am happy with that he is where he is right now, and that he was happy with the time that he spent with us, enough to bring us a deal. And that is what I look for as success in my life, to have people that transcend my company, go to do even greater and bigger things, and that they don't look back and feel like we did them wrong in any way. We try to do what's best for everybody. And even if it was not the best for him in that precise moment, I'm pretty sure when we were having that conversation, he was not going to give me a hug. But I hope that when I see him again, that's going to be different.
Mm. Wow. So your metric for success is encouraging, teaching, developing people to hopefully down the line become confident and skilled enough to transcend your own company. And the fact that he came back with a job after what sounds like a really difficult conversation is testament to the strong culture that you've developed at a friend's agency. What do you think the kind of crux of developing that culture has been, or what did you do during his time with you that, led him to come back to you with a job after he left?
Well, I mean, the things that I hope were the markers. First, I try to treat everyone as a human, right? They're not resources. No matter that I have to put that in my resource sheet, they're still people with lives, with problems, with situations, and trying to be understanding of their whole being and moment in life. I think it's something that between myself, Richard, Esteban, and our PMs, we try to take good care of that. Sometimes people are underperforming because they're struggling in their personal life. And sure, everybody says live your personal life outside of the job, but we know that's a lie.
Mm.
You fought with your girlfriend, you had a shitty night, your stomach's upset. Well, it doesn't matter about the taking a sick day, it's just being comprehensive of that person. Maybe they had a bad day and they want to be at work so they can disconnect. Or maybe they had a bad day and they want to go to the park. Just go, do whatever is best for you. And second of all, I am I have a very particular style of coaching and teaching where I try to understand what's their each and everyone's capabilities and then push them to the limit. Like I give them the framework to fail, and I want them to reach certain failure points in certain times, and then like make sure that like you see, there's no problem. You fail. That's good.
Mm. You're
And
pushing their comfort zone.
yeah, definitely the main thing that I look for is growth, not passing marks or being speedy at building websites. What I'm looking for is like the same thing that I do for me, like trying to be very different from the month before. Last month I was not good at analyzing a scope. Well, this month I'm gonna try to be good at it. Last
Mm.
month I failed at finding certain, I don't know, testing use cases. Well, I'm gonna try to be more structured and find those use cases in this new project. Last month I didn't send enough leads, emails to get calls. Well, this month I'm gonna try to send triple that. I don't know, and I want to see that pushing the boundaries because that's how we all grow.
Mm.
And mhm.
That's a really fascinating way of kind of judging how well people are doing at your company. Do you have any kind of personal way of tracking? You say you want to be a completely different person month on month. In my head, I'm like, that sounds exhausting.
Oh yes.
How do you how do you track that? Do you have a Notion doc? Are you kind of, do you have like goals per week, or kind of how do you even approach that type of that goal?
Oh, just exhaustion. Like how
Okay.
tired I am now because it's like I'm not super organized in my personal life, so I don't have a notion to track that. I don't have that objective. Um, but every day I take, both alone and with my business partner, I take a moment to reflect on where we are, what we need to do, and so on. And and then I look into, I don't know. For example, this week is like I needed to send more emails. It's like I looked in Monday and I had sent two. It's like last week. Damn it. I need to send more. So I'm gonna send more. And through that process, it's like why I'm as I go about it mechanically, I'm trying to think like why? Why didn't I do it last week? Like this is not hard. Sending emails is not hard. You write it down, you hit command enter, and just like whoosh, and that's it. So it's like why? And so that's where I try to grow. It's like I was afraid. It was that rejection. Um, is there anything that I am missing that is holding me back? Maybe I think that I need a better website or a bigger website or more case studies or less case studies. And all of that is like, okay, if it's something that needs to be done and has a task and execution, I'll push it down to the team. It's like, hey guys, we need more of this, we need more of that. Let's find a way to do it. But
Mm,
at the same time, if if it's all me, I'll keep on working on it.
mm. So
Um,
it sounds like just having a really good self-awareness and a practice of introspection just means that, you know forget the Notion doc or
mm,
whatever, because sometimes I find that people will have all these productivity hacks that are actually distracting them from whatever the thing that they're meant to be productive doing is. But I'm intrigued that you just will kind of do that in your day-to-day, this process of introspection. Okay, let's get into the quickfire community questions. I've been sent a couple of questions from people, and yeah, I'm intrigued to get into these. So, one question from Ben Selinsky is, what is the most underrated Webflow skill that you look for when hiring?
Oh, I definitely have an answer for that. Architecture of CMSs.
Okay, interesting.
That makes or breaks the entire website project. It's like if you can do a very basic CMS and fulfill the need, and limit your client at the same time. So a good CMS architecture sometimes is more complex, but simple in the long run, more flexible in the long run. And it's one of those key elements that we actually always are growing and finding new ways to leverage Webflow CMS. And now, thanks to that new lifted limit of 10,000 for the normal accounts and the normal project, I think that we're going to keep on finding things that make the CMS more powerful beyond just being a CMS.
Interesting. And what is the one piece of advice would you give to a Webflow freelancer who's just starting out?
Definitely study the fundamentals. We put everybody that jumps in our company through a little process of, hey, look at the videos of Webflow University, and we have a little list. Then we have the Rand Siegel's course. Take the Rand Siegel's course, follow it to the T. That's going to give you some good dexterity with Webflow as a tool. And then depending on where their initial assessment of ability comes from, and like then if you're very good with animations, polishing them, be specialized and polish them using Joseph Barry's course in awards. Or if you are very good in code and custom code, then probably your best route is to go with wizardries with Timothy Ricks. So go to that one. And maybe you are more of an all-around player, more focused on design. Joe Moore's awards course is really good too.
Great advice there. So first of all, study the fundamentals, then specialize once you have a more of a direction about kind of what you want to focus on. So for animation, Joseph Berry's course on awards, it's sick. Go do it. Anybody that's interested in animation. And then design, you talked about Joe Moore. And then if you want to do more custom code stuff, Timothy Ricks, he has Patreon, which is insane as well. So shout out to those three. Next question. How did you land your first gigs?
Well, this comes also from a recommendation from Chris Doe and the Pro Group. The first gigs normally are within arm's reach. Like reach out to your family, to your friends, to your college contacts, people that know you personally for many years, and tell them just that, hey guys, I'm doing this. Do you happen to need one of this? And you don't need to actually do a lot of work or legwork on that because they know you. Like people, hey, do you want a personal website? Do you have a company website that you want to revamp? And yes, at the very beginning, sometimes you'll need to bite the bullet and do it for the price of a couple pizzas. But what you need is your portfolio. What you need is to learn how to go above and beyond from what a customer wants. Like, sure, they want a landing page, but if you give them something that they could do themselves, they're not going to recommend you again. But if you go a little bit above and beyond, and as you follow the fundamentals, and you know to put some nice animations or to use a beautiful responsive with wizardry, they're going to have something that says, oh wow, this is really nice. And that's going to be the first part of your word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of the time people try too hard to get clients. Actually, starting literally with your mum and dad or whoever's closest to you is quite a good start. My mum actually has a book group, and that was how I first got my first gig, because I said to mum, "Hey, do any of your friends in the book group want a website?" So there's very, very simple things. I know it's kind of cringe to ask your mum, but hey, she
I
loves
asked
you.
my wife.
Okay.
She was executive. She is executive director for a non-for-profit, and it's like, hey, you guys need a new website and a new member platform. And this was before MemberStack. I was like, yep. It's like right now a project like that, it's in the six figures for our company, and we did it for $1,500. Like
Wow.
it
What a
was like a
steal.
22 website pages with a video and membership area and external storage of training and a little LMS.
Wow. 1,500. What a steal.
Yes.
But I mean, but you love her. So, things you do for love, eh?
Oh yeah. Let's say that. I needed I needed the client, to be honest. I needed a good case study, and definitely in this case was like she did me a solid to talk to her board, but I still needed to appear into a client and try to make this not nepotism. It's like I'm hiring my husband to do this. Like, no, I'm hiring a good developer to do this. Just happens to be my husband.
Hey, so she's doing you a favor, in fact. Great.
Yeah.
And what is your ideal, or who is your ideal client, and who is the client that you would avoid like the plague?
Oof. This goes against everything that everybody has told you and everyone in the past. We don't have a niche. So right now, my ideal client is whichever one has the money to pay for us. But then, as we said, that needs to cross a couple like non-niche thresholds, right? It's like you need to be a good guy, you need to be a good person that we enjoy working and talking to.
Mm,
But then, as you continue passing these little barriers, um, it has to be someone that gives us creative freedom.
mm,
And although that needs to be part of our positioning, we always look for someone that evaluates us as experts, right?
mm.
In the type of conversation that we never enjoy is to having is like, hey, can you make the logo bigger? Kind of thing. It's like, are you the logo expert? No, you're not.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
literally hired me because I'm good at logos. I need to tell you, as an expert, the logo size is perfect. You're my client, so if you force my hand, I will totally make it bigger. But it's like, I want to make sure that this logo, this size, is what I believe is gonna take you to where you want to be.
Mm. So clients need the money, they need to enjoy beer with you,
Yes.
and they need to give you the creative freedom to go bananas. I heard you say that
Yes.
on another podcast. But
Absolutely.
go bananas, but then refine from there, right? If anyone's watching, don't just do crazy animations for any project.
Oh yeah. And the Go Bananas it's a fantastic example of the attachment of your end product. Like with this particular client that she always tells us to go bananas. It's like we give them always like from 3 to 5 options, super super crazy, super different edges. It's not even a line. It's kind of like a I don't know, a pentagram. It's like it's all in the edges. It's like completely different. And then she already told us, and she goes in and tells us a new one every time. It's like, this is horrible. This doesn't work. What is this? Like, no, it's like chop, 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 chop. And out of all of those ideas, she's an amazing executive creative director. Amazing. But all of that, we begin to refine something that it's, in my opinion, normally one of our best work. Um,
Mm.
because we already had the agreement that we are not going to take it personally.
Mm. So trusting her judgment, but also letting you guys explore in the
Yes.
first place is the key. So we have gone through the three failures. We have done some community questions. I've got a harder question for you now to finish on. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Marcelo, what is your next failure going to be?
So I have a real one and an ideal one because this gets real really fast. It's like our next failure, hopefully, is not in any learning related to having the core portion of my company going dark for 2 weeks for the WEBFLOW conference. Hopefully, I don't have anything to learn from that. Now, it's possible. It's very possible. Now, our next failure, what we're looking for forward next year, is to discover how we give back more of the company to our team. So it's going to be more focused on human resources and benefits. The best example is right now we have an unlimited vacation policy that, in my opinion, my team is not using it as much as I want to. And like, I don't like that. Something is off. So what I'm going to change, and they already know this, so this is not a news for anybody, is like we're going to be doing away with the unlimited vacation, and we're just going to begin to add vacation weeks through the year. It's like, you got to be off this week. Like, no, but it's like, nope, just go away. I'm going to remove you from Slack if I need to. Just go do whatever you want for 5 days. See you back in another week. Because I want them to have a life. I want them to, if the way that we are currently handling our direction for them and how our managers are directing them to work doesn't seem to give them the comfortability to say, I'm going to use a Friday to not be here and I just want to take 2 days off or do whatever, then maybe I'm not as good as a coach as I should be to get everybody aligned on that. And they are only getting the wrong side of the benefits. Like they're only getting the demands. They need to relax. So we're going to change that and see what happens.
Awesome. Well, I can't see that being a failure. I think that's a really important thing to implement. Kevin says, your site looks so good. I want to work for you guys. I am sure he still wants for you. He still wants to work for you after this incredible episode. Dale has said, excellent advice. Marcel, the experience that you speak from is very beneficial. Thank you. So people are loving your advice during this episode. Thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably. Do you have any final parting words for anyone that's watching?
Keep on watching Jack's program. Definitely one of the things that I took away actually from talking to a lot of other business owners and agency owners, especially here in the WebFlow space, is that we are all doing the same things. We are all having similar problems. And even the ones that you see on Twitter being amazing and doing great work because they're also having the same amount of lows. Nobody is going to be necessarily all the time saying, I failed at this and I failed at that and going to Twitter with it. But we are doing that. We are having struggles. You have people that may be working for Coca-Cola and struggling to make an end meet on a particular month. So make sure that you remember that we all fail and that you are okay to fail too. That's good. We'll all together, we'll band together and help you.
Important advice there. Thank you for telling people to watch this. I appreciate that as well. So if people want to find you, there will be links in the show notes just below. So feel free to reach out to either me or Marcelo if you want to chat through anything in this episode. If you haven't already subscribed to the Webflail Roundup, you should. It's at webflail.com. You'll get this episode delivered to your inbox, freshly edited on Spotify by my little brother, Will Redley. He's an amazing podcast editor. So if you guys want to hire anyone, hire him. But anyway, this is going to be in your inbox on Tuesday. Thank you so much, Marcelo, for coming on this episode. And
absolutely.
Thanks for everyone for watching along. See you next week, guys. Great.